Sari. I am a Chartered Accountant and a Certified Management Accountant, and I moved to Canada under the Express Entry program for federal skilled workers in June 2021. On this channel, I am sharing my immigration journey. I'm sharing all the steps that I took in order to get my immigration done, and I'm also sharing the stuff that I did after I came to Canada. So if you're looking for videos on that, this is the right place to be. I completed my immigration application myself. However, please note that this is not an immigration consultancy channel and I'm not an immigration consultant. So if you're doing your application yourself, make sure that you check all the updated information on the Canadian official immigration website. Or if you're contacting a representative, make sure that they're a certified immigration consultant. In the last two episodes, we have been talking about finding the right reasons to move, or the pros and cons of moving to Canada. So now that you're here, I'm assuming that you've already considered all the pros and the cons and you're still willing to move to Canada. If you're someone who has not watched the previous two episodes, I strongly recommend that you do, because they'll kind of set the context for what we're going to do now. We're going to go right into the whole start of the immigration process. Alright, so the whole immigration process is a long process, so it can't be covered in one video. For today, we will be talking about what kind of immigration programs are available for people who want to immigrate, and we'll be discussing more about the program that most of you might be eligible for. We're going to discuss the eligibility criteria and the scoring criteria, and also we'll take an overview of all the steps, the step-by-step process that will be required. It will be an overview, it will not be a detail of all those steps, but it will give you a general idea about how this whole immigration system works. Now I'm going to show you the official immigration website for Canada, and I'm also leaving a link for that web page in the video description box below. Please make sure that you always go to the official immigration information page before you check out any other page, because of two main reasons. One, the other pages can be sometimes misleading, especially if you don't already know what the usual rules are. There are so many scams around immigration, and I would advise you to be very careful about it. Secondly, the guidelines and rules around immigration keep changing every few months. So basically the official website is the best and most updated source for it. So even if you're reading stuff on other forums about anything, make sure that it is aligned with the most recent guidelines around immigration, because they do keep changing frequently. Just a small note before we go on further. In case you're enjoying the content and getting a lot of information from it, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and also share it with your friends, because that would actually help this informational content to reach a wider audience. So when you open the link given in the video description box, you will come to this webpage. It is called Immigrate to Canada. Over here you will see a list of all the kinds of immigration programs that are available. However, the most common and the most relevant one for almost all of those watching this video would be the Express Entry program, Immigrate as a Skilled Worker. This is the program under which I applied and immigrated. Provincial Nominees program. This is also kind of similar to the Express Entry program, only that this is specific to a province. So this is also relevant. And another one is family sponsorship. So basically under this program, I will be sponsoring, for example, my parents in the future. So this would be relevant to me then. But for now, we will be discussing the Express Entry and the Provincial Nominees program, as they are the most relevant ones for people who are looking to apply for immigration. In today's video, we'll be mostly focused on Express Entry. In fact, I think a few upcoming videos will also be focused on just Express Entry, because it's in itself is a huge one to cover, and I hope that you stay tuned in order to listen to every aspect of this program. So how does immigration under the Express Entry work? I think this is something that I always like to have. I like to have an overview of all the steps that would be needed. Not the detail, just the high level overview of, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, so that I know what are my milestones going to be and how is the whole process going to look like. So I hope that you find this approach helpful, because this always works for me. Step 1, Find out if you're eligible to apply for Express Entry program. Of course, that is going to be the first step, because if you find out that you're not eligible, then the whole story just stops here. Step 2, calculate your immigration score. Now, the first thing that you need to understand about Canadian immigration is that it is a points-based system. On the basis of your age, your educational background, your professional experience, your language ability, you're given a score. Later in the video, we'll be seeing how we obtain that score. Your immigration will be based on how high you score. Another thing that you have to know is that if you find out that you're eligible to apply for the Express Entry program, it does not mean that your immigration is already guaranteed. Because if your score is very low, even though you are eligible, your turn for immigration may never come, because there will be so many people who have higher scores and they will definitely be preferred. So calculating your score is a key step, because if your score is very low as compared to what is generally the trend in that time for Express Entry immigration, then it might not be as fruitful to apply, and it's better to stay back then, because we wouldn't want to waste money or time on something that we know is probably not going to work. Step 3, you're going to get your documents ready. Step 4, you submit your profile. Step 5, you receive an invitation to apply from Canadian Immigration Authority. Step 6, you complete your immigration for permanent residence. So when I talked earlier about completing your profile, in that part of the process, we don't give a lot of information. We just give the most basic information, our IELTS test results and stuff like that. But now in this step, you will be actually giving a lot more detail. This will be more exhaustive in terms of the documents that it requires, the evidence that it requires for your work experience, etc. So this is one step that can take quite a long while to complete. But after the invitation to apply, you only have 60 days in order to complete your Express Entry application. Step 7. Once the Canadian Immigration has done all the background checks and verified everything, and you make it to the cutoff score for immigration, then you will be receiving a confirmation of permanent residence. This document is also called COPR. This document is where they mention that we have confirmed you for permanent residence, but in order to officially become a permanent resident, you need to land in Canada. And they also specify within what time do you need to now come to Canada in order to officially become a permanent resident. If you don't visit Canada during that time, then your COPR expires and you have to go into the process all over again. So step 8, of course, is that you land in Canada and officially become a permanent resident. So that didn't sound very difficult, right? That sounded pretty easy, yeah? And we're now going to talk about the types of programs that are available under the Express Entry. The first program is the Federal Skilled Workers Program. This is the program under which I immigrated, and this is probably going to be the most relevant program for all those watching this video. The second program is the Federal Skilled Trades Program. This program is basically for people who are working in skilled trades like maintenance and operation of equipment, or technical services in the natural resources sector, or agriculture, chefs and cooks, butchers and bakers, etc. The third program is the Canadian Experience Class Program. This program is mainly for people who already have experience of working in Canada, a minimum of 1 year experience of working in Canada. So this is probably not going to be relevant for a lot of us. So now we're going to compare all these 3 programs. The official website has actually given a very good comparison for these 3 programs in terms of eligibility, etc. But before we go into that, we need to understand 2 very key terms that will be used throughout this process. The first term is Canadian Language Benchmark, which is also known as CLB. So this is the standard that the Canadian Immigration Authority uses in order to assess your language ability. So if you're planning to appear in IELTS in order to prove your language ability, then I'm going to display the equivalency chart of CLB as compared to IELTS score.
This is the language test equivalency chart. Over here, you will see how CLB rates against the accepted test for English. We're looking at IELTS General Training Test, and if we're talking about CLB level 7, for example, we're talking about a score of 6 in each of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. If we're talking about CLB level 8, then it's 6.5, 6.5, 7.5, and 6.5, and this is how it changes. In a while, we will be seeing what is the minimum eligibility criteria in terms of CLB, so stay tuned for that.
I've also left a link to this webpage in the video description box below. The second key term is National Occupation Classification Code, which is also called the NOC code. This is in a sense what Canadian Immigration Authority has used to define each individual job type or occupation type. So if I go on the official page and check out what is the NOC code for auditors, it would tell me that it is 1111 and the skill type required is type A.
So in order to find my knock code, what I did was that I came to this page which says find your knock. Over here you'll find a brief description of the skill types if in case you're wondering what these skill types actually mean. And then if you keep going down, you will see that there's a list of knock codes. And if you want to search, for example, an auditor, that's what I'll type here, and it would say knock code is 1111 and skill level or type is A. Now, if I belong to the field of human resources, this would give me these three different knock codes and three different skill types. And the description says managers, professionals, recruitment officers. So this can be pretty confusing because you don't know if you don't know what you fall into, this could actually affect your whole application because your express entry is based on the skill level or skill type, right? So in order for to find out which one is the most relevant for you, what you're going to do is just check like these three knock codes by going on this search page that is linked over here. Once we come over here, we can find out search by knock code. We can find out over here, I'll write 1111 financial auditors and accountants. I'll hit search, and then it will give me a description of the main duties that fall under this category of financial auditors and accountants. So this is very useful because when I will be submitting my application, I have to make sure that my job description and my requirements, educational requirements and everything is mostly aligned with this, because they'll be using this to determine whether I actually do fall under this knock code or not. So make sure that you choose your knock code very wisely. Similarly, when we were looking at human resources, so we got these three knock codes, right? So we'll go into each one of them and we'll see what were the requirements for each of these, what are the main duties under each of these, and which one of these aligns best to my current job.
So if you can, go and check this website. I'm leaving the link in the video description box below. Go and check your occupation, go and check what your knock code is and what your skill type is, because that's going to be useful in the part of the video that is coming up. Now that we understand these two key terms, we can now look at the comparison chart for these three immigration programs in order to identify what are the differences between these, and it would also become more clear to you which program you are most relevant for or which program you should apply in.
When you click on the link in the video description box, you should arrive at this page which says compare all express entry programs. As discussed, we will be comparing Federal Skilled Workers Program, Federal Skilled Trades Program, and the Canadian Experience Class Program. We've already identified what these two terms are, so we're good with that. Now let's get to the eligibility criteria. The eligibility criteria is in terms of language skills, level of work experience, amount of work experience, job offer, and education. So when you look at language skills, you have for Canadian Experience Class, English or French skills for at least CLB 7 or above if your NOC is 0 or A, and CLB 5 or above if your NOC is B. For the Federal Skilled Workers Program, it just says CLB 7. So, in whatever category of skill you have, it has to be CLB 7 or above. And then the Federal Skilled Trades Program, you have CLB 5 for speaking and listening and 4 for reading and writing. In terms of level of work experience, for the Canadian experience class, as I mentioned earlier, you need to have a Canadian experience in at least one of these three NOCs. Whereas for Federal Skilled Workers Program and Skilled Trades Program, it can also be a foreign experience. So any work that you have done in your own home country, that would count to it, as long as it fulfills the criteria for that NOC code, which we were looking at earlier. Then you have the amount of work experience. So the minimum work experience required for Canadian experience classes in the last 3 years is at least 1 year, either combination of full-time or part-time, and there are rules to calculate that. On the other hand, for the Federal Skilled Workers Program, you have to have at least 1 year continuous within the last 10 years. So this is like the minimum work that you need to have done in that particular NOC code that you're applying under. However, this is not the maximum, so the more experience you have, the better your chances are. And then Federal Skilled Trades Program is 2 years within the last 5 years in that NOC code. In terms of job offer for the Canadian experience class as well as for the Federal Skilled Workers Program, you do not require a job offer, but for the Federal Skilled Trade Program, you do require one. Education for the Canadian experience class, it's not exactly, there's no specific criteria. As long as you've worked in Canada in any of the NOC codes, then they're good with that. However, for your Federal Skilled Workers Program, a minimum of secondary education is required. However, this is just the basic criteria that they're setting over here. I have to focus on that because this is just to make you eligible, but this does not mean that this is that you have a really good chance if you already have secondary education, because the higher the education you have, the more points you get and the brighter your chances are. So this is the main comparison of all these express entry programs. And if you've already searched for your NOC codes, then you probably have seen that you fall under you most probably fall under the Federal Skilled Workers Program if you don't have a Canadian experience of 1 year. And so we're going to be looking more into the Federal Skilled Workers Program.
That was a lot of stuff, and that is now out of our way. I hope you're not information overloaded. If you are, pause this video, go listen to a song and then come back, because now we're going to discuss step 1 in detail. The step 1 that we just discussed a while ago for the express entry program. I hope your memory is better than mine, because my memory is absolutely really bad, but I'm working on it. So step 1 that we discussed was determine your eligibility to apply for an express entry program. You will need to go to a web page that actually helps you identify whether you're eligible. I'm leaving a link for this web page also in the video description box below. Actually, whatever I talk about, like whatever web pages and everything I'm talking about, I am probably going to leave all those links in the video description box, so make sure that you check those out, and all those links are to the official immigration website, so you can be safe regarding that. On the official immigration website, there is actually a tool that helps you identify whether you're eligible. You just have to answer a few questions, and I'm going to guide you through the process. So if it's possible, you can open it on the side while I take you through the questions, because some of those questions might be about information that you don't have already. For example, we will be asking you about your IELTS score, etc. I know you've probably not appeared in your IELTS yet and you don't know what to input there. So I'll be guiding you through that process. So if it's possible, do open it on the side and answer alongside me.
If you clicked on the link for the eligibility calculating tool, then you should have arrived here which says, do you want to come to Canada as a skilled immigrant? And now we're going to find out if we are eligible to apply. And for that, we will be asked questions about all these different factors. So let's go ahead. Click on check your eligibility. Now it says, which province or territory do you plan to live in? If you don't know yet, choose the province or territory you are most interested in. So this is a required question and you do have to include an answer to it. if you know where you're going, if you really have an idea, if you already have someone there or you have a province in mind, then go ahead and pick it up. For now, I'm going to be looking at Ontario because this is the most common option that most people select. Let's look at Canada's official language are English and French. You need to submit language test results for all programs under Express Entry. Which language test did you take for your first official language? So over here, we are going to assume that we have appeared in IELTS. Well, if you have already, then that's great, but just assume over here. Now it says, what date did you take this test? So basically, they're trying to determine whether your test is still valid or not. So we're just going to select January 1st of 2021. Now it says, enter the test score for speaking. So as we saw that the minimum eligibility criteria for anything was CLB 7 or above, which would mean like an IELTS score of 6 in all. So over here, just to be safe, we'll just mark 7 for all. I am sure that if you work towards a score of 7 for all, it is very easy to get. You can even get higher. But over here, we're just trying to find out if we are eligible. So we'll just mark it with 7 all and go ahead. Do you have any other language results? Which language result test did you take for your second official language? So over here they're trying to ask us if we have taken a test in French, but we probably have not. And we're not going to say, just going to say none. We have not taken any other test for our second official language. In the last 3 years, how many years of skilled work experience do you have in Canada? It must have been full-time or an equal amount in part-time. I'm going to assume that we have no skilled work experience in Canada. During this period, which NOC level is most of the experience in? If you do not have any Canadian work experience, none of the above. So we're going to select none of the above. Click next. In the last 10 years, how many years of skilled work experience do you have? It must have been continuous, paid, full-time, and in only one occupation. So this is the NOC code that you are applying under. You have to mention only your work experience within that NOC code. So even if you have been working for the past 10 years, if your jobs in those 10 years were irrelevant to the NOC code that you're applying under, then don't mention that experience. So I'm going to assume that maybe we've been working for 2 to 3 years in the NOC code that we're applying in. In the last 5 years, do you have at least 2 years of experience in any of these types of jobs? So they're basically trying to see if we fall under the skilled trades program, but just because I'm going to assume that we have not worked in any of these, so let's go ahead. We're going to say none. And then we're going to move forward. Now it's asking us how much money in Canadian dollars will you bring to Canada? And over here we have an option of all these. So in order to apply for immigration, you also need to give a proof of funds because they need to know that you have enough money to come here and settle down in case you don't get a job in the first few months. So for one person, the minimum amount that you should have in your account is 13,000 Canadian dollars. That is why it won't let you select less than that. If you select this, it will probably just reject you at the end that you're not eligible for express entry. So we're going to assume that you have this sum of money in your account, and we're going to select 13,213 to 16,448 on the basis that you're just applying for yourself. Because if you apply for more family members, then as per the requirements, you need to have more funds in your account, so the amount will start to increase. But over here we're going to assume that we're just applying for ourselves for one person, so we are going to select this, and then in family members we're just going to select one. In case you're planning to move with your spouse and kids, then you will mention those as family members. The term family members over here does not include your parents. However, if you want to check your eligibility, then make sure that you also increase this amount, because if you say that you're trying to immigrate with 5 people and over here you have mentioned just $13,000, it will kind of like say that you're not eligible. We'll be talking more about proof of funds later, but for now this should be enough to help you check your eligibility. Next, do you have a valid job offer in Canada? I'm going to assume that most of us won't, so let's go with no and then go ahead. what is your date of birth? This is because immigration is also dependent on your age. So we're going to select arbitrarily, let's say that we're born in 1997 in the month of June, 1st June. If you did not, alright, the next question is, what is the highest level of education for which you either have a Canadian degree or you have an equivalence for it from an educational credential assessment? We're going to go in more into how you get an equivalence, but it's basically kind of trying to ask that if you have a master's degree in Pakistan, what is that master's degree equal to in terms of Canada? So there are a few master's degree that were, if they're 1 year or 1.5 year or something like that, it might have a different equivalence in terms of Canada. So what you're just going to do over here is select one of these that you think is most relevant. For me, it was two or more certificates, diplomas, or degrees. One must be for a program of 3 or more years. So for me, it was CA plus a bachelor's. For the CA, they gave me an equivalence of 3 years or more bachelor degree. And then for my bachelor's degree of 2 years, they gave me an equivalence of post-secondary diploma because it was a 2 years bachelor's. So I went ahead with this. So I'm going to select this for now. And I'm going to click next. I want us to select those options that apply to us. I have studied full-time in Canada. No. I have at least 2 years of full-time experience in Canada. No. I have a relative in Canada. No. By relative over here, they may mean parent, child, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, aunt, uncle, niece, or nephew. So no. And so I'll just say none of the above. And then I'll move on. What is your marital status? Please mention the right one. I'm just going to mention never married, single. And this is what it says. This is my result. It says that I appear to be eligible for express entry. And then it has given me this personal code that I can use to create my express entry profile. This code just expires the next day, so it's just to help you not enter the whole information again, because when you create the profile, it will again ask you all these questions. So if you have this code, you will not have to answer those questions, but this is valid just for 1 day. So, and it actually looks so weird to see with 2022 written over here because still new. And it just mentions the steps about what I'm supposed to do after, and I think we've already covered the basic steps, the overview of the steps. So that's about it.
Alright, so what did your results say? Did it say that you're eligible to apply? If yes, let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to share in your happiness. If not, I would still recommend that you keep watching this video, especially for step 2, because in that step we will be looking at how they score your immigration profile. In that, you will see some factors that you probably did not identify before that are kind of like deal breakers, and you probably input the wrong thing during your questionnaire for eligibility. So keep watching and identify something that you might have missed, and you can go back and calculate your eligibility again. So now, step 2, calculating our score for immigration. We'll be doing that in the next video because this video has already become too long, and also because I want to leave some suspense. Alright, so if you found this video helpful and informative, then I'm very glad, but I would want you to tell me about it too. So please leave a like, comment, subscribe to my channel, because that is also going to keep me motivated to keep coming back to give you more information about the whole thing. So make sure that you motivate me, give me the right motivation to do it, and I'll be looking forward to your questions if you have any. I'll be returning with the next step regarding the immigration process. Till then, goodbye. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me.